Okay, I think I'm ready.
No! God, please, no!
Okay, today we're looking at Ms. Marvel, the new MCU show that just came out on Disney+. The first episode came out last week, and as usual, I will be doing my predictions, my theories when it comes to the whole series. What I do basically in these kind of videos is that I watch 1 or 2 episodes and then I try to guess where the season is going and whether it's gonna be good, how it ranks amongst the other MCU series that we got this year and last year, and whether at the end of the day it is worth your time, whether you are an MCU fan, a Marvel Comics fan, or a random person sitting in the middle of the street wondering what life is all about. Yes, I'm gonna be answering all of those questions today. Ms. Marvel is gonna be first for me as well because I don't really know the superhero herself. I've never read her comics. I didn't know that there was another version of Captain Marvel out there, but at the end of the day it kind of stopped there because I don't really have the time to read Marvel comics anymore because the continuity is so incredibly complex that it's almost impossible to pick just one up and start from scratch.
Wait! You were right! We don't have to fight! Sucker punch!
One thing that is really clear is that unlike the comics, this superhero here is not going to be linked to the Inhumans. In the comics, basically, she's the product of a crossover event that happened right after Infinity War in 2013 that involved the Inhumans. And basically in this event here, the Terrigen Mists were released throughout the world and activated dormant Inhuman cells in ordinary people who are descendants of the Inhumans. And basically, Kamala Khan, aka Ms. Marvel, is one of these descendants of the Inhumans.
You even know what you are?
I'm a superhero.
I'm 100% sure that that is not what they're going with when it comes to this series here, mostly because the Inhuman series was incredibly bad, and I actually found it so incredibly hilarious how you can pick any moment out of that series and just shit on it as much as possible because it's really low quality. But at the end of the day, we also got one Inhuman little wink in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. It was not only the same actor and the same character reprising their role, but it was name dropped that it was an actual Inhuman. It is possible that at some point the Inhumans will appear within the MCU, but I'm pretty sure that it's not gonna be now and it's not gonna be through Ms. Marvel. It is clear within the series, for example, in the first episode, which is really packed, it's incredibly dense, which is something that I really love if it's well done. The powers that she has, they seem to be given through this weird bracelet that her grandmother gifted to the family and that she stole from the attic. It is not really clear whether this artifact is specifically reacting to her DNA, whether her grandmother was a superhero as well, for example, and she never told anyone, which is possible as well when you think about it, when you think through the context of being in a very closeted Muslim community. Across the entire episode, it's very obvious that this is going to be an internal struggle for our main character who will have to choose between following her dreams, following her fantasies, and saving people, and being a good person and not disrespecting her parents and making sure that their parents are proud of her.
Who do you want to be in this world, huh? Do you want to be good, like we raised you to be? Or do you want to be some, this cosmic head in the clouds person.
It could actually work, the whole idea that maybe her grandmother was some kind of superhero, but she never told anyone because her family would not understand, or even worse, they would shun her as much as possible just because she wasn't perceived as normal or traditionally feminine. Anyways, let's step a little back and add a bit of context when it comes to this series here. It's gonna be a 6-episode series of 50 minutes per episode. Something that I really like, to be honest, because I think Marvel doesn't do really well when it comes to 30 minutes episode. And even when they stretch it in between 30 and 40 minutes like it did with Loki, it still really feels like it's not enough. You like sit there and watch the episode and you're always almost disappointed by the end of it, feeling like you didn't really get a chance to explore a story. It just really feels like they literally cut out a movie into 6 parts.
That is disgusting. Give it to me now.
Miss Marvel is not like that. It really feels like a series. It really reminds me of the pacing that we had with Moon Knight, where it actually feels like a normal series, but it's actually good. I really enjoyed this first episode. I had zero expectation. I thought this could be incredibly cringy if they didn't do it well, because there were so many different boxes to tick when it comes to the representation, when it comes to the fact that this is a teen show, and they didn't really handle it really well when it comes to Spider-Man. I don't really think that Homecoming, Far From Home and No Way Home are good Peter Parker stories. They tend to focus way too much on the MCU and everything else around it.
Thank you, Ms. Parker, for having me. And thank you guys for having me.
And I was a little bit worried when they said they were gonna do another teen-centered show, but from what I can see here, it looks like they really nailed it. The series was created by Bisha K Ali. Kamila Khan is a Pakistani-American 16-year-old teenager who lives in New Jersey and who is an incredibly huge fan of Captain Marvel, aka Carol Danvers, and she loves the Avengers. She worships the Avengers, maybe in the same way that Peter Parker was, but she's really gone beyond that, because this series here, it really feels like they're really gonna be embracing the idea of people worshipping the Avengers and not being able to understand that it's not always smiles and rainbows. There are a lot of consequences, there is a lot of danger involved, and it's actually quite nice to see it from this perspective, because it really feels like Kamila Khan is actually one of us at the end of the day. She's a fan, and the first episode actually takes place around AvengerCon, which is the very first Comic-Con inspired Avenger convention. It's incredibly weird. You got people remembering things that happened in the MCU films as if they were actual events. People who are dressing up as Iron Man, as Spider-Man, as Ant-Man, as these other characters, but they're not specifically referencing the comic book characters. They are referencing heroes within the MCU. So of course the stakes are a lot different. In our real world, it would be basically like if you organize like a history con and people would come dressed up as Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, and then you would have people dressed up as like Elon Musk or like Barack Obama or any other celebrity while they were still living. It's incredibly weird, you know, like, and it's really blurring that line between fiction and reality, but it's done quite well, and it's really cool, especially because it really shows how there is a lot of happiness and there is so many positive things that have been spawned by the arrival of the Avengers and all of these superheroes. And it's not only sadness, it's not only depression because of what happened with Thanos and the snap and things like that. So it was kind of refreshing to see like a different look when it comes to how people deal with superheroes in the MCU. When it comes to the performances and the different actors and actresses in this series, Iman Vellani is playing Kamala Khan, and she seems to be incredibly good at it. Something that I really enjoyed, for example, is that she really looks like a teenager. We tend to get these kind of glorified looks at teenagers, especially when it comes to women.
We have to invert the whole school again. No bra, no panties. I hate this one place. Can I finish my test, or we go okay. Here we go. Miss Johnson, there better be a curve on this test, because I'm about to fail. Yeah!
Oh my god, I'm so fucking hot.
We tend to portray them in their best way possible. Everyone is incredibly skinny, everyone has incredibly long and beautiful hair, everything is wearing makeup at all times. And just by seeing like someone who looks different, who acts different, it was really refreshing. If you want to compare that to another character within the first episode, look at Zoe, for example, and how she's posing as Captain Marvel within the Avenger Con. And those are the kind of superheroes that we've been getting across the different years. And almost every single one of them is a really skinny, white, pretty woman. When it comes to the other actors and actresses, I don't really know any of them. I just realized that her best friend, who's played by Matt Lintz, is actually a character from The Walking Dead. He was playing Henry for like a couple of episodes.
Kill him. Or he'll kill you both. You decide.
And it's like every single thing I love she seems to hate, and it's like she thinks I'm some kind of, you know, weirdo.
You are a weirdo.
What?
But it seems nice enough. I really like their dynamic, even though it feels like there is some kind of romantic tension going on. And it's kind of annoying because I would really like for people to just be friends and not necessarily to ship like men and women in like series and films all the time. It would be nice to get some representation for some genuine friendships, you know? We already have enough superheroes who have romantic partners. It would be interesting to see superheroes who have friends, who have families, you know? It would be something that will feel fresh. This particular episode here is directed by Adil and Bilal, who are Belgian Moroccan directors, and maybe you know them because they directed the most recent Bad Boys movie, which was surprisingly really good. But they also directed this really indie movie that maybe you know. It's called Batgirl, and apparently it's coming out this year on HBO Max. Has anyone heard about it? Has anyone seen any kind of trailer? They're gonna be directing also the finale of this season here, and then there are two other directors who are coming along to direct the next 4 episodes. So Mira Menon and Charmin Obaid-Chinoy. This gets me a bit worried just because I realized that while I was doing some researches, my favorite MCU Disney Plus series tend to be directed by just one person. If you look at WandaVision with Matt Shakman and Loki with Kate Herron, I feel like those are the two best MCU series that we got, whether it comes to the story and the visual look and how they are structured. I feel like they're the most consistently good when it comes to the performances as well. So that is the only thing that gets me worried, because at the end of the day, I really enjoyed this episode and I think this has a lot of positive things about it.
You get what?
Well, I hear you've had a hectic couple weeks.
Very funny.
When it comes to the costume and the powers, I mean, the costume right now is almost non-existent because she's going to this cosplay competition. And the powers, we do get a glimpse of her powers at the very end of the episode. They look kind of weird. It's a lot of CGI. It reminds me of the Captain Marvel powers when it comes to that weird like fluorescent energy shield that goes around her skin. That's probably a link to Captain Marvel's powers in some kind of way. But at the end of the day, I'm not really convinced when it comes to the powers and how they're gonna look. I do really like the idea that she's not a stretchy person, which she is in the comics and even in the video games, and it looks incredibly weird and goofy. I mean, within the MCU, it's kind of, they still haven't managed to make those powers look interesting and useful in any kind of way at the end of the day. So I do like the fact that they've kind of reinvented them, and she kind of creates force fields that she can use to move objects and move herself within a specific space. But within this episode here, we don't really get to see exactly what they're gonna look like. But it could be interesting. It kind of reminded me of the Green Lantern stuff, you know, when it comes to like manifesting different types of energies and using it in different ways. When it comes to the trailer, we do get a glimpse of how she's gonna use those powers, and it looks really, really cool and interesting.
What does it feel like?
Cosmic.
But that is a thing that we've seen in all the other MCU shows. The special effects are incredibly uneven. Sometimes they're really cool, sometimes they're incredibly bad, and you have no idea how someone with so much money, so many resources would not spend and invest the money in it. And I feel like Stranger Things and Netflix in this new season really proved how TV series should have the same standard as films if you want to portray certain things. It's something that I really liked when it comes to this episode, is that the family is not only comic relief, it's not only a support system for our main character. It feels like there are their own characters, and it's really interesting how they're exploring representation and how they're exploring different costumes and religion. I feel like this is gonna be one of the most complex MCU series that we've gotten when it comes to relating to the real world, of course, not when it comes to relating to weird comic book stuff that doesn't really exist, you know?
I'm 16. Look, I promise I wouldn't do anything stupid. You do trust me, right?
No, I don't trust you.
Of course she does.
No, I don't.
She does. We do. It's just that we don't trust anyone else.
And I like that. I feel like Falcon and the Winter Soldier kind of touched on a couple of those themes when it comes to racism, but I feel like this series here is really gonna do it much better. The entire reason why I named this video in this specific way, it's because I really fell in love with the look of the series itself and the fact that it's really embracing the fantasy world that Camilla is kind of like creating in her own head. It is manifesting in different ways across walls, across different whiteboards, and within her head as well. I loved how also, like, when they were discussing, for example, with her best friend, the idea of going to AvengerCon, they were texting each other, and you would see the responses kind of appearing within windows, within LED panels and stuff like that. It is incredibly creative, and for once it is embracing that kind of teen show aspect. It feels really fresh, and I really enjoyed it. Of course, the introduction to the series is really cool, and it really shows how much love this girl has for the Avengers and for superheroes in general. If you enjoyed things like the Mitchells versus the Machines, this is the exact same thing when it comes to that kind of animation. If you enjoyed things like Scott Pilgrim as well, that idea of like a fantasy world being even more powerful than the real world.
After a few quick photos with fans, maybe some chats with the press, we bounce. I'll sneak back into my room just before my dad comes in at 9:22 p.m.
I just hope that it's the same thing across all the different episodes, because it really feels like they put a lot of time and budget within this episode here, and I hope that they're gonna do the same across the different 6 episodes, because if they did it just for the premiere, just so people would be going like, wow, you know, like this looks different, this feels different, let's keep watching, and then they don't do it across the season, it would be really weird, and I hope they don't do that. But that's exactly what I mean when it comes to this season here. It's exactly what the MCU needs, not necessarily because of the representation, almost because it feels like they're doing a Black Panther but for like Pakistani representation, but mostly because they're really embracing the kind of story that they want to tell through a visual style, and they are respecting the main characters enough to let them tell their own story using their own words and imagination, instead of like copy and pasting things within one series to the next so that everything looks exactly the same.
I see a girl divided. Is she there? Is she there? Where's Kamala? Who knows? No one knows. I don't even know. I can't see. Where? And I know, fantasy's fun. Fantasy's really fun. But right now, I need you to pull yourself together and join reality.
I hope that more series are gonna be like this, and more films as well, kind of like Doctor Strange as well, which really felt like it has its own visual imagery. When it comes to the future of this season here, we don't really know who the enemy is gonna be. At the end, we get a post-credit scene with some people from the Department of Damage Control who are basically saying that they've never seen powers like this, and they're gonna have to have a talk with this person here. I like the fact that basically people are getting incredibly good at spotting people with superpowers, and then at the same time I'm really afraid that this show might turn into yet another show about SHIELD things and government agencies and adults trying to control the situation, instead of our main characters doing it on their own. I feel like that is the only refreshing thing that I like about Moon Knight, and the fact that it feels very contained. There were no government agencies, there were no one who was coming to Moon Knight and being like, you're kind of weird, do you want to join the Avengers? No? Okay, go to prison or to this dimension. You know, no one did that, and that's exactly the fresh thing about it. When I was researching the show, for example, I found out that Aramis Knight is gonna be playing Kareem, aka Red Dagger, who is a vigilante who wears a red bandana and wields throwing knives. So that seems to be maybe her main villain for the series itself. It is kind of surprising that we didn't get to have a look at our main villain within the first episode, but at the end of the day, this is just a 6-episode series, so it makes sense that they wouldn't even need to build up this big bad guy, because it is just a teenager trying to figure out a lot of different things going on in her life.
Cosmic.
We're gonna be seeing Miss Marvel again next year within the movie The Marvels, where she's gonna be joining Carol Danvers. So she's gonna become a very important character within the Marvel Cinematic Universe itself. And honestly, I'm looking forward to it, because for now it seems really fun, and I'm really looking forward to the episode is coming out tonight and the ones that are coming out right after. For me, Miss Marvel is a recommendation, whether you know the character or whether you don't, whether you like teen shows or not. This doesn't feel like a teen show in a very cringe way. It feels very fun and exciting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Every single like that you drop will go to more representation in the MCU, because it is not only important and necessary, but it is also the energy that fuels new original stories. And there is no denying that we definitely all want to see that as MCU fan or as film nerds.
I think having such horrible representation in the news and film in the past, I think it's nice to see that Disney are opening doors and barriers to people like us. We're able to go into the film and TV industry.
My mum, she started playing, we were actually there. Prince Charles, he handed me the MBE. Like, there was gold everywhere, there was violins playing, and I saw my mum and literally she was like playing with her eyes, and I was like, mashallah, like, I've made her that proud. And I said to her, like, it's quite amazing that you're crying because it's such a big moment.
For me it means a lot, because I wanted to be an actress when I was a kid, and I didn't bother because there was nothing like this for me to like feel that wearing a hijab there's a possibility. So this is like a really big deal.
I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Time to talk. No, it's Morbid time.
Oh shit.